David, sum up Wayne Rooney for us.
I was lucky enough to be there for his first England game, and he came into the team, and obviously we were all aware of him anyway because he was well established even at that age in the Premiership, and you know, the things that he was doing for Everton at the time, you know, it was special, and you could tell he was one of these players that was going to come into the England team and just be confident, and he was. You know, he stepped in his first day, and he just looked confident. You know, even though he was still a little bit shy, which he's definitely not now, but he was a little bit shy. You know, coming into the hotel and around the England squad, but. Once he was on the training pitch, you know, you could tell the type of player, the type of personality he was, and how good he was gonna be. And you know, it was great to actually see that, you know, that raw talent and that eagerness at such a young age.
Do you remember on the circuit when it first became known that Everton had this wonder kid that was emerging?
Like I said, you know, obviously being close to Liverpool. And obviously hearing about Wayne at Everton, you know, we were well aware of that. We were well aware of a player that was coming through the ranks and that could possibly emerge into a great England player. And you know, sometimes you hear about these players and they disappear, but you know, Wayne was definitely one of those talents and that name that kind of wasn't going away. And we knew that once he had that chance in the England shirt, you know, he'd stay there.
Sven-Göran Eriksson took a big decision to start him in that vital qualifier against Turkey. Yeah. Were you surprised at the time that he took that bold decision?
No, because, you know, if you're a manager with great experience and a manager that makes bold decisions, then you know, making a decision like that is not difficult, because you know there's raw talent there. There's talent. It doesn't matter what age you are. If you're good enough, you're good enough. And that's the way I've personally always looked at it. You know, it doesn't matter what age you are coming into a team, into an international game, into an international team. If you're good enough, then you'll get picked and you'll play. So I don't think there was any doubt on Sven's mind, and as players, you know, we had no doubt in his talent.
Euro 2004 obviously was an extraordinary breakthrough for him. Do you remember the kind of whole media circus that built up around him at that time?
Yeah, of course, you know, because we've all been part of that over the years. You know, we've all been part of, you know, the media circus that surrounds the England team, because the expectations is so higher, and our media follow us everywhere around the world. You know, when we play in big tournaments like, you know, the World Cup and big games around the world, our media are there, and rightly so, because, you know, this is what we do. You know, our fans want to see coverage, and they want to see the right coverage, and our media give them that. And you know, when a young talent like Wayne comes into the team, there was always going to be some kind of circus that followed that. Didn't affect him in any way. You know, he played his game. He was young. It didn't affect him in any way on the field. And I think he handled it with, you know, with kind of the shoulders of and the head of a 27-year-old and a well-established player at the time. So, you know, we knew that coming into any game was never going to be a problem for him. And you know, obviously the attention that followed that wasn't going to affect him.
Did he surprise you though in how important he became to England so quickly?
No, you know, that's the thing about Wayne. Nothing surprised me about him. You know, nothing surprised me about how he would emerge into a team and how he would integrate with the players and how well he would play, and what a hero for the fans. He would come really quick. And to be honest, that's the way I always felt about Wayne. You know, when he first came into his first game, I knew that he was going to be the player he was, because you could tell. You know, there's some players that you could just tell that are going to fit in straight away and that are there not just for one game.
If he'd stayed fit, do you think we would have won that tournament?
I think if any great player stays fit in a tournament like that, then you have more of a chance of going further and progressing. But, you know, we still had a lot of great talent in that team. So it was just unfortunate that we didn't progress. But, you know, obviously having Wayne fit, you know, is a massive thing for any team. It's a massive thing for Everton at the time, Man United at the time, and obviously for England. You know, if a player like Wayne stays fit, then of course you have more chance.
The build-up to 2006 was quite similar to the build-up to 2002, the metatarsal injury. Were you able to give him some advice about that time?
I think, you know, I've been asked this question over the years, you know, when I've gone through certain things that other players then go through. Have I given them advice? I mean, you talk about it. It's not something you make a point of giving that advice, because I think, you know, majority of players know exactly what they need to do and know exactly how they need to get over things. I think me and Wayne spoke about it at the time, but, you know, obviously it's an injury that it's one of those things that happen, and you know, it takes time, but also it can turn around very quickly. You know, with myself, you know, when I got the injury, I knew that I knew what I had to do. I knew it wasn't going to be 100% perfect, but it was 98% perfect, and that's the way, you know, Wayne is. You know, he will play when he wants to play, and when he realises that he can play, and it doesn't affect the team. So, yeah, of course we spoke about it, but it wasn't something that we made a point of sitting down and talking about, you know, metatarsal injuries.
His tournament obviously ended with the sending off against Portugal. Were you able to help him with the way that the public would react to that afterwards?
I think we'd moved on at that point from, you know, what had happened to me and what had happened to probably Phil Nev. I think we'd moved on from that moment. I don't think Wayne would have got the same attention, because I think people realised how important he was as a player to the England team and how important he was going forward. You know, there was no point in killing his confidence with battering him too much. So I think that, of course, I'm sure me and him spoke about it, and I'm sure I would have put my arm around him. Well, I know I put my arm around him and, you know, spoke to him, but it was nothing kind of, you know, sometimes you need to, he's a strong individual, he's a strong person, and sometimes players get over things like that their own way, and sometimes they need to do that their own way, and I think Wayne's that kind of person. Of course, every player needs their arm, you know, an arm around them at some point, and someone to give them, you know, a boost in confidence. But, you know, sometimes it also helps the player to actually, you know, get over it themselves. And I think Wayne did that himself. And, you know, he was disappointed, and we were all disappointed for us obviously being knocked out of the competition. But everyone makes mistakes. You know, I made a mistake in '98. You know, other players have made mistakes, you know, throughout their careers, and you know, you get over it. Sometimes it takes time. Sometimes it takes a few days. You know, it all depends on the individual. And Wayne's a strong enough individual to actually not need really too much kind of you know, cotton wool around him.
At the end of the tournament, Sven said, "Don't kill Wayne Rooney." What do you think he meant by that?
You know, I think that when a manager comes out and says something like that straight after something like that happens, it helps the nation kind of understand where that player is and where the team are and how much the team support that individual. And Sven, without a doubt, was a player's coach. He was a player's manager. You know, he looked after the players unbelievably. He supported the players. He would protect the players. And that's what a manager should do. Sir Alex Ferguson did it. He did it for years and years at Manchester United, not just with myself, but with many of the players that were there. And that's how you get the best out of players. You know, he supported Wayne the way he did. He didn't have to. He could have come out and said, you know, if Wayne would have been out there, we'd have won. But he didn't. And that's the right thing to do, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether you've got 10 men, 11 men. If you're good enough, you know, sometimes the luck comes with you at that point, and games can turn around. But you know, the manager did exactly the right thing. It's exactly what you would want to hear as a player. I'm sure it's what Wayne would have really appreciated, that support. And you know, that maybe was one of the reasons why you know, he didn't get some of the treatment that, you know, he might have done if he'd have come out and said something different.
Over the last 20 years, David, England have had two major icons, yourself and now Wayne. Do you think he's learnt from you how to deal with that status?
I'm sure he's learnt from many people. You know, Wayne's played with some great players over the years, and he's been captained by some great captains, been managed by some great players. So I'm sure he's learnt himself over the years how to deal with certain situations. I personally saw a big change in Wayne when he moved to Manchester United, and also when he became England captain. When he became England captain, you could see all of a sudden there was a maturity in his game and in his personality and the way he was handling himself. It was different. You know, he was obviously getting older as well, so you know he needed to and having children. But you know, there's a number of things that actually change and that mature you. And I think when he went to Manchester United, I think that was a change because he had someone like Sir Alex Ferguson that actually nurtured him into a player and a personality and a person that actually could handle certain situations. And then when you become England captain, there's all of a sudden another huge responsibility on your shoulders. And you know, sometimes you still make mistakes, but I think at the end of the day, you're England captain and you know how to handle those, and you know how to look after the players that you're playing with, and speak to the fans and speak to the media. And that all changes when you become England captain. So I don't think he learnt off of me. I just think he learnt off of many players that he's been with.
You both grew up in the public eye, you had your breakthrough very early, and have lived your entire lives in the public eye. I mean, how challenging will that have been for a young man from Croxteth to Liverpool to live his whole life like that?
I'm sure he loves it. I'm sure he loves it. You know, he's a down-to-earth kid that's grown up loving the game, and now he's England captain. I mean, there's not many things better than that. You know, it's every kid's dream to play for their country. You know, every kid that loves football, it's their dream to play for their boyhood team. You know, it's my dream to play for Manchester United, my dream to represent England and to captain England, and I was lucky enough to do that. And Wayne's exactly the same. I'm sure his dream to play for Everton at a very young age. He did it at a very young age. And then he's playing for Manchester United, being captained by, you know, some of the great captains that have worn the shirt for Manchester United, being managed by one of the best managers, if not the best manager in football, Sir Alex Ferguson, and then playing for England the amount of times he has, scoring the goals, breaking records, having the amount of caps that he's got. I mean, that's any kid's dream.
How much did you enjoy playing with Wayne Rooney?
You know, there's certain players that you play with throughout your career that you like playing with for different reasons. Wayne hits all those reasons. He's a hard worker. He's unbelievably talented. He gives everything every time that he steps onto that field. And he did that from a really young age. He did that at the age of 16. You know, stepping onto the field as a young kid, you could tell that as soon as he steps onto that field, that's it. He doesn't think of anything else apart from winning. And he gives everything to every player, every team that he plays for. He plays like the fans want him to play. And that's why he's loved. That's why he's loved. You know, there's certain players that I've played with in my England career, and, you know, I've loved playing with them. Wayne, Stevie G, obviously all the United players that I've played with over my career. But with Wayne, he's just one of those talents, one of those raw talents. He came in, he was cheeky, he was shy to a certain point, but you knew that he wasn't going to be shy for long. But he stepped onto the field and you knew that he'd run for a brick wall for you, for himself, for the team, for the fans, for England. That's the type of player you want playing for England. It's the type of captain that you want.
Just finally, how good a player is Wayne Rooney?
Without doubt, one of England's best. One of England's best. One of England's best. He will become England's best goal scorer and highest goal scorer. He will break records. He'll continue to break records. I hope he goes on and breaks, you know, the all-time cap record, because he's young enough to do it. He's fit enough to do it. He's mature enough to do it. And without doubt, we all know he's good enough to do it.